Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's a beautiful Sabbath day here in Irving, and it should just enhance our uplifted hearts as we study the Word of Almighty Yahweh today. We're going to continue to read in Matthew 24. We ended in verse 21. I'm not going to recap. There's so much contained in this that we've spent several weeks now just covering this one chapter. But there's a lot in here. So I'd like to pick up. We ended in verse 21 before, and I'll just pick up with verse 22. And instead of reading through, I will just read each verse and then discuss it. So that way, wherever we end today, whoever picks up can continue next week. In verse 22, well, I'll go back to 21 and read it and then just stop at 22. For then shall be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days had been shortened, no flesh would have been saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. For I was looking to see to try and explain some of it's future, but also speaks in the past tense. Except those days have been shortened, no flesh would have been saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be saved. Now remember, when it's talking about the abomination that makes desolate. And in this world, there's many things that abominations that do make desolate. But I would say the primary thing is the things that appeal to our selfish nature. Now, he's speaking about specific things. Daniel, back in verse 15, when he says, you know, which the things that Daniel the prophet spoke of, standing in the holy place. Let him that reads understand. Now, a lot of people are looking for the rebuilt temple, but this rebuilt temple, will it truly be the holy place? See, what makes something holy? Yahweh's presence. If Yahweh is not in it, if Yahweh is not with it, then it's nothing. I say the same thing about the Ark. You know, everybody's talking about the Ark of the Covenant. If they find it, is Yahweh with it presently? It's an artifact. It's an artifact. Yes, Bob.
It's a tool. It's a tool that's going to be used. We just got through just a few minutes before the services. I just got through reading the last words that were said about where the Ark of the Covenant is and what's going to happen with it.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 Maccabees, 2nd chapter, starts in verse 4 and goes for about 5 verses. And it's a tool that Yahweh is going to use to deceive this world.
And yes, but is it going to be Yahweh that deceives? Yahweh does not deceive, but the world
Yahweh
has
is
invested so much into it that it will be.
He is allowing it
allowing
to be used as a weapon by the devil
mm-hmm.
to deceive mankind. It says that, as we have read over and over, he's going to sit in the temple where there are no chairs.
Mm-hmm.
There are no chairs in the temple. Or actually, it's the tabernacle. I feel real convinced that the ark and the tabernacle and the table of showbread are all buried in the same cave, according to what we find in
Second Maccabees.
Second Maccabees, yeah. So, but it's going to be recovered, and it's going to make a splash in the religious world like you ain't never
Absolutely.
seen.
I believe that.
So, anyway, and they'll reassemble the tabernacle and probably build a temple around it. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But there's a lot of things that, since they're future, we're going to have to see them. But it's going to deceive even the elect.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
have to be
see. But yeah, now will be elect actually, because see, what Yahshua says here in verse 22 that the time will be cut short for the elect's sake. Now, throughout Scripture, we always read about there are always those who remain. This point is reiterated in Mark 13, and if any of you have the notes that Larry created, I'm kind of following that because it's almost the same notes that I had that I had jotted down. And since he printed his up, I'm just using it. I made a few notes on mine of things I wanted to cover as well. But Mark 13, 19, it reiterates the point. And if you want to turn there, you can, but I'll just read it. It's, for those days shall be tribulation such as there has not been the like from the beginning of the creation which Elohim created until now, and never shall be. So it's going to be a very terrible time. People always ask, and my wife asked me about this, you know, why we talk about suffering and things like that. I said, it's for me, it's a way of mentally preparing for it, even if it never occurs in my lifetime, you know. But it's you prepare yourself for whatever is to come. But whether it occurs in your lifetime or not, but it's just mental preparation and being able to steel yourself for these things. Now, you can see for the elect's sake. Now, are they like the remnant? And we'll talk about the remnant here in a minute. Isaiah 6, let's turn to Isaiah 6, 13. Isaiah 6:13.
Did you say 56?
Isaiah 6. Isaiah 6.
6? Chapter 6.
Chapter 6, verse 13. Let's see. Let's go up. Let's go up to. We'll start reading in verse 11.
Yeah.
Then I said, Yahweh, how long? And he answered, until cities be wasted without inhabitant, and houses without men, and the land becomes utterly waste. And Yahweh has removed men far away, and the forsaken places are many in the middle of the land. And if there is yet a tenth in it, it also shall be in turn be eaten up as a terebinth and as an oak, whose stock remains. But when they are felled, so the holy seed is the stock of it. The people of Yahweh are like the stump. The rest of it is consumed and destroyed, but Yahweh spares his people. And here, and the stump. Why the stump? It's the humblest, the lowest part of a tree, but it's also the foundation of it. The roots are connected to that stump. Yes, David.
Even though you can cut down a tree, you can still grow from the stump.
Grow from the
So
stump.
there's still life.
Still life.
And its DNA is in there.
Remains.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the word is actually stump.
Stump, yeah.
It means stump.
It says stock here, but it's the stump
Yeah,
of
got
it.
it.
So the tree is cut down and destroyed, but the stump, and then it describes that stump as a holy seed, or it's descriptive of. It says, so the holy seed is the stock of it, or the stump of it.
It's kind of like starting over and something.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's turn to Isaiah 65. Yeah. And we'll read verses 8 and 9. In this manner, says Yahweh, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one says, destroy it not, for a blessing is in it, so will I do for my servants' sake, that I may not destroy them all. Yahweh will cut the time short for the sake of his servants, his people. And I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob and out of Judah, and an inheritor of my mountain, and my chosen shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. And these all have a common theme, which I'll address here in a little bit, as I said a moment ago. more about this Yahweh cutting short of time. Zechariah 14, like David says, we got a lot of scriptures that we want to try to cover. Zechariah 14, 1 and 2. Now, what's key to this is what is the very beginning here. Behold, a day of Yahweh. Now we know how the day of Yahweh is described in Scripture, and this is a day of Yahweh. It's a day of judgment. The day of Yahweh comes when your plunder shall be divided in the middle of you. For I will gather all nations unto Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the wives ravished, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. The residue of the people. Now, when we read this, remember what? When Jerusalem, you see Jerusalem surrounded, and it talks about fleeing, those fleeing. Well, this is Yahweh. It's because of Israel's rebellious nature, rejection of Yahweh, that these things have come upon them. So here again, a day of Yahweh. It's a day of judgment. And it's addressing Jerusalem, which was what? Basically the capital city of Israel. But there's always a remnant that remains, and that remnant being the servants of Yahweh. When we read these kind of passages, again, our trust must be in Yahweh. When we think about Psalm 91, when it talks about, 1,000 shall fall at your side and 10,000 your right side, but it shall not come near to you. Well, I mean, it's all around you, but it's not coming up on you.
Only with your eyes.
Only with your eyes shall you see.
That.
But it requires trust in Yahweh, faithfulness, and to remain faithful to Almighty Yahweh. Yeah, I read that. So, and I really want to. I guess I'll turn there. It just keeps coming to my mind. Isaiah, and it's addressing Israel, but when you look at the greater Israel, the spiritual Israel, then it's applicable. So I think it's Isaiah 10. Let me see real quick. Don't turn there yet. It speaks of the remnant that returns. Is it Isaiah 10:20? Thank you very much.
Isaiah 10:20.
Remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And you can take your time at some point and read, and starting, just read the whole chapter of 10. But when it comes down, let me see. Yahweh used the enemies of Israel for their correction, but then that enemy lifted himself up. So Yahweh addresses him saying, shall the axe boast itself? When the axe is just an instrument, but shall it boast itself? Anyway, it shall come to pass in verse 20 that the remnant of Israel and they that have escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again lean upon him that struck him, but shall lean upon Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. A remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, to the mighty El. When you look at what we just read in verse 22, that we would be that remnant. The people of Yahweh are that remnant, the stump that we just read about. But we must be faithful. We must keep our eye on Yahweh, and we must not be distracted by whatever it is that's going on in the world around us. We can't be drawn to it. We can't cause it to allow us to doubt. That's the tool that the adversary uses against us. That's what makes us desolate. Is doubt will make us desolate. It will lay us waste. Okay, let me go back to Matthew. Yes, David. Mm-hmm.
So another thing is a lot of people focus on where it says shortened. Those days will be shortened.
Mm-hmm.
And and they try to attribute a time frame into how long tribulation will be, and
Mm-hmm.
making it shorter or longer, or, trying to gauge. I think that's the wrong kind of focus, because you're trying to put in your mind, oh, if I can just last for this long, that'll be okay. Well, what if it's longer than you actually anticipate? You're stressed, taxed, tested for a longer period of time to see if you're sifted and you're worthy.
Right.
You should just prepare your mind that no matter how long it is, I'm not gonna turn away and fall away from y'all, as opposed to trying to put a timetable.
Right.
That's pretty good advice.
It is, because how long is our lifetime, and how many people will there be? To whom is it shortened, and in what way? Remember, I've always said we have to endure to the end, and we don't know what that end for personally each one of us may be. Maybe it'll be like Enoch. His time was shortened. Who knows?
It was like how long was 700 years?
People were living hundreds of years, but how long, Enoch, so we don't know in what manner it's gonna be, that those number of days will be shortened, but the point is, we have to maintain ourselves in our trust in Almighty Yahweh, no matter what. And again, we who knows if we'll even live through that,
And,
Well, that's fact.
being human, we understand that there's comfort in knowing that, let's just say in Revelations, it says that the devil will have you in prison 10 days.
Mhm.
If I know in my mind that I only have to wait for 10 days, then, I can prepare myself. But you might set yourself up for failure.
For
if
failure.
you're thinking 10 days, and after 10 days, it doesn't happen.
Right.
And you start blaming and pointing the finger at, why is this continuing on? And Scripture said 10 days,
Mhm.
but that's not what that means.
Right. So we have to be of the mind to endure to the end, no matter what, however long that may take place. So,
Well,
yes, Tom.
just an example in Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter, where he says, in verse 17, what an example, about enduring to the end and not getting focused on the time, but your relationship to Yahweh. Although the fig tree, verse 17 of Habakkuk, shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines.
Mhm.
The labor of the olive shall fall, and the fields shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls. Rather bleak picture here. Yet, here's human choice.
Mhm.
I will rejoice in Yahweh. I will joy. Back in the 10th chapter of Isaiah, where we were a little earlier, it says that the joy of Yahweh has an anointing on it for our benefit. Here it says, I'll rejoice in Yahweh. I will have joy in the Elohim of my salvation. Yahweh Elohim is my strength. And he will make my feet be even weary up on high rocky areas like hinds feet,
Mhm.
and will make me to walk in high places. What an attitude.
Yeah.
It transcends, how much longer is this trial, this judgment, this punishment gonna happen to people all around me?
Right. And again, Yahweh gives us a peace that surpasses understanding. And so even in times of turmoil, we have peace. Now remember, this is definitely speaking of future events. It is speaking of future events. But it speaks in the prophetic perfect. It's saying, that it says, except those days had been shortened. So we can look back to things that have happened in the past, especially Jerusalem. We know that's already been discussed about the when Joshua said not one stone to be left on another, the things that happened in the 70 coming era. But it says it had been shortened. No flesh would have been saved. It's a prophetic perfect. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So we trust in Yahweh's word. Verse 23, then if any man shall say to you, lo, here is the Messiah, or here, believe it not. For there shall arise messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. Now, that is really something that's going on that we see a lot of today. I have spoken with people who have said, yeah, my pastor said that, I'm gonna be blessed and something's gonna happen. I'm gonna, you're gonna get some money or whatever, and then they walk out in the parking lot, there's $100 on the ground, and then they just, they put their trust in these things, and it solidifies in their mind this person's position. People are learning the name of Yahweh. People are learning about Yahshua. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna, to me, I think that's the key verse that for the deception, because like you mentioned earlier, what makes something holy, it's Yahweh's presence.
Yahweh's presence.
So, and if you go to like Joel 28-32, and it talks about, and you can read that, like, Yahweh will pour his spirit on all of the flesh, right? So if we are the temple, and he, pours his spirit out on the last days, right? So, like on a spiritual sense, the abomination could come within people,
Right.
and that's going to come through deception. Right, so I just want to kind of tie that together. If you just kind of put the physical temple aside and you look at yourself as the temple and how Yahweh's going to pour his spirit, like I said, like Joel 28-32.
Joel 28.
Joel, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, Joel 2.
I was going to say 28.
Sorry, Joel 2, 28-32, sorry.
Okay, 28,
yeah.
32, okay.
You can read that.
Yeah. So she is referring to Joel 2, 28 through 32. Yeah, and that's true. Mark 13:21. We'll turn to Mark 13:21. And it's a synoptic, so it goes right along with what we just read. And then if any man shall say to you, lo, here is the Messiah, or lo, there, believe it not. For there shall rise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show signs and wonders, that they may lead astray, if possible, the elect. What are we looking for in Messiah? What are we looking for? When they said, give us a sign, show us a sign, what did Yahshua say about those who seek a sign? So do we need to see signs in order to know Yahshua? And I see Shannon saying, no, we don't need to see signs. What will we recognize? And this is key, because Yahshua said, we will be known as his people by what? Our love for one another. And that's why I always make reference and saying that what it comes down to is we have to bear the fruit of the Spirit. That's the only evidence of the Spirit of Yahweh in us, is the fruit that we bear. And if that's not what's showing, then how can we reflect the Messiah? Because that was what he did. That's the example he set for us. So we shouldn't be among those that are looking for signs.
Robert,
Yes.
just along that same line, he had already warned, them before in Matthew 7:15, where he says, beware of the false prophets which come to you as sheep in sheep's clothing,
yes, sheep.
but inwardly they are ravenous wolves.
Right.
Someone can have a aura or perception of being like Messiah outwardly, but inwardly, it's always, if you watch them long enough or you're around them long enough, you're going to see their true inward intentions, that they don't have the love that Messiah had for his people.
They're gonna drop a phrase, they're gonna say something, they're gonna do something that you just know is out of line.
It's interesting because Yahshua showed a humble servant attitude. But what we see in the man of sin, or the adversary, is control. And it's interesting that when you go to various churches and things like that, it's what they always stand up and say, I'm your servant, I'm a servant, but then they exercise this control, you see. So it's full servant attitude, a full servant mindset. Yahshua said, you know, that the Gentiles, they exercise, they rule over one another, exercise authority over one another. He says, but among you it is not so, for you are brethren. So even a person given a responsibility, a greater responsibility of serving, because that's what the positions are. And the greater the responsibility of serving, the more they have to reflect Yahshua in everything they do, or they misrepresent him. And that's very, you know, but a lot of these so-called leaders miss that point. Tom and then Bob.
Yeah, the two scriptures that come to mind, because you pointed out that bearing fruit does have fundamentally that we do truly love one another in the body of Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1 John 3, in verse 14, it says, we know that we have passed from death unto life because we love the brethren. He that loves not his brother abides in death. But we read over here in 1 John, where it says in verse 2 of 1 John 5, 1 John 5 says, by this, here again, we know that we love the children of Elohim when we love Elohim and keep his commandments. So it's like two fundamental litmus tests, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
that we can say boldly, like the Apostle John, we know that we do love Yahweh when we keep his commandments. We have love one for another. We passed, in the minds of our Heavenly Father and Elder Brother, we passed from death unto life.
Unto life, right.
Wow, I mean.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, and Bob.
Well, pretty much what Tom just said. You know, we follow the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
And all the rules and instructions that exist today.
Yeah.
And there'll be a time when we will be. I really believe there's a time coming we're going to be persecuted, especially by the ones that claim the Torah. We're probably going to be suffered because of not abiding by the what do they call it?
The Noahide laws.
Noahide laws.
Yeah.
Beheadings and all that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, good point,
It's
because
gonna be rough, you know, you're gonna have to deal with it.
because Yahshua is talking to believers, and you know, if we look at the example of Yahshua the Messiah, where did his persecution come from?
Yep,
Religious leaders.
there you go,
Yeah.
pretty good clue.
So that's the clue. Everybody's always saying, "Oh, the world." You know, I have a
world is
feeling
ignorant.
most of the world's not going to care, but
The world is
the
ignorant.
persecutions come from.
Is Muslims and the ones that are of the 2 billion plus that you can say are radicalized, that's nowhere near that number. They believe that we're infidels, and they have a directive from their quote creator, they believe, which means curse. One of the words for curse is Allah in Hebrew, to decapitate us. So there is that factor as well.
Oh yeah, well, you know, we see what it says in. If you remember the confederation with Esau, Esau's confederation, and then you read about in Obadiah when it speaks of Edom and those who that confederation. They're going to be, you know, he allied himself with those who sought to, you know, to kill his brother. And so we see what Yahweh says concerning that. There's a heavy judgment against them. But when it's always people who know something or who believe in some way, you know, not in the truth even, but a corruption of that truth. But Yahshua is everything he's talking about is pointing towards that. Is pointing towards that. Yes, David.
Yeah, were you gonna go to Revelation 13?
No, you can read it since you're there.
Go ahead. The reason I mentioned how they would look like sheep, but on the inside being wolves.
Mm-hmm.
As Revelation describes the false prophet or the second beast, it gives a description and it gives of the things that he will do to convince people that he is Messiah or the fake Messiah.
And, okay, and I think in mind, I was gonna refer to that because I was gonna say a part of that deception is calling down fire from
Yeah.
heaven, fire and
You wanna
brimstone from
read
heaven.
it? Yeah, I'll let you read it.
Okay, Revelation,
13:11 through, I think, that's about it.
since it came to my mind, I guess I'll go ahead and turn to Revelation 13.
Yeah,
Okay,
11.
there we're going?
Revelation 13.
Revelation, okay.
Because I was gonna say something about it, but I didn't have it written down in my notes.
John gives us the
You said 11, 13, 11?
13:11 through 15.
Through 15, okay. And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon.
Yep, that's the,
Yeah,
wolf.
the wolves in sheep's clothing.
Yeah,
And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his sight. And he makes the earth and them that dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose death stroke was healed. That's a sign. But is that of Yahweh? You see, we have to understand, we can't be impressed by the things that we see. We have to recognize, we have to know the Messiah. We have to know, we have to be in him and him in us. And he does great signs that he should even make fire to come down out of heaven upon the earth in the sight of men. Is that the true Messiah? That's going to be an impressive sight.
Yeah. Will be, no doubt.
But we're warned not to be deceived. Yes,
I've heard people tragically in years back in the Christian world say, well, the last days will be one just like Elijah. He'll bring fire down from heaven, who's representing the Messiah.
Yeah.
No.
No,
way.
he's not representing the Messiah. And he deceives them that dwells on the earth by reason of the signs which it was given him to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast who has the stroke of the sword and lived.
and that's where you identify it's not him.
It's not him.
He's calling upon something that clearly in scripture says that is not to be done.
Mhm.
Making an image.
Right.
And so I look at these verses and I say that it's the adversaries replicating what Yahweh and Yahshua have done. But when Yahshua returns, he's going to do a new thing that nobody else has the ability to do. And that's change his people to be like him.
Right.
And so if somebody's saying their Messiah or an Antichrist is coming, they're not going to be able to do that new thing. They can replicate the old. They cannot do that new thing.
And they're replicating in an image.
In an
That's
image.
very
A
interesting.
physical
Your
image.
comment, yeah.
And that's, yes.
That just brings me
Make
to
an
that,
image, I never considered that.
yeah, you know that moment where people had to choose between Yahshua and Barabbas? And I read somewhere that Barabbas actually means, I don't know Hebrew, son of the father. Son of the
boy,
father,
yeah.
so you have
Yeah.
son of the father and then son of the father,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yeah, you know, people deceive.
Son of the Father,
Those who dwell on the
Barabbas.
earth.
and then
Yeshua
Yahweh is
is-
salvation. Yahweh
the
or
son of the father,
Mm-hmm.
the father, the son.
Yeah.
I believe Barabbas is a type of our adversary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because Barabbas was both one who was an insurrectionist,
Yep.
had been accused of trying to overthrow the government, and he was accused of being a murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure sounds like the MO of our adversary.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Give us Barabbas and ask for a Messiah. Let this man's blood be upon us.
Mm-hmm.
But let him go by a capable man. Makes me wonder about the Azazel that you read about
Oh,
in
yeah.
Day of Atonement,
In Day of Atonement,
Right.
yeah.
which was let go by a fit man, didn't die, he didn't shed blood for sin.
Right.
Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same difference.
Well, verse 15 is pretty interesting
Yeah.
too.
Verse 15 of Revelation?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't read it, but
That
I'm,
solidifies it.
Okay.
He ain't the one.
right.
Worship the image.
13,
The
15.
thing's gonna speak.
And it was given to him to give breath to it, even to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as should not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all great and small. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free and the bond, that there be given to them a mark on their right hand or on their forehead.
See, like, that the speak, trying to pretend to be the word.
Right. And
Right?
yeah, these
It's
all
like
have
we just
meanings, and we
copy
have to
everything.
recognize these things.
Copy everything.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about how our adversary inspires false prophets to set the false counterfeit, I'll put it that way,
Mhm.
before the eyes of the world. Well, we just read about the nature of in the hand or in the forehead here. Well, back here in Exodus 13, the original that's true and accurate, it says here in verse 9, of those that observe Passover, days of unleavening, it says that it shall be, verse 9 of Exodus 13, a sign unto you upon your hand, and for a memorial between
Your eyes.
your CPU, your eyes, that Yahweh's law, back to the Torah, may be in your mouth.
In your mouth. People.
Counterfeit of the original that's true and accurate.
What's really that this mark, everybody's always talking about the mark of the beast. It's not in my understanding, the way I see this. Remember when Yahshua said, Yahshua showed us the spiritual understanding of a matter when he says, you've heard it said that you should not commit adultery. He says if a man looks upon a woman to lust after her, he doesn't have to do the act at all. But where is it? It's here, right? Mark of the beast is, and as you were just pointing out a moment ago, Tom, it's what impresses the mind. It's what you believe, what you have allowed to be impressed on your mind.
Your forehead you're talking about.
Yeah, in the forehead. But it's speaking. What is it? The physical forehead, or is it what's
The thought.
the thought?
Funny, I never.
The spiritual application, and what you do, your dexterity, what you use your hands for. Do you use it for good or for evil?
For evil.
You see.
So it's
So
not like
so the mark of the beast will what? Control your thoughts and your actions. Yes, yes, Curtis.
that's too simple.
Actually, there's a contrast between the mark of the beast and the seal of Yahweh, if you will, because think of it this way. The implication here in Revelation 13 about the reception of the mark of the beast is a choice.
Yes.
We have a decision to make. Whereas when you go back to Ezekiel 8, when it talks about the seal of Yahweh, that's not a choice. It's put upon those whom the Father deems worthy.
Right.
The man
Right.
with the writer's inkhorn, he said, put it on those who sigh and cry for all the abominations of the land.
Yes.
That's it. It's not that it's put upon against their will so much. It's just that it's put up. It is placed by the Father's messenger upon those whom He deems worthy.
Right. And I think it's illustrated so that we understand what that. But remember, what does it say about Yahweh's law written upon our heart? You see, is it physically written upon our heart, or is it the impression of Yahweh, the effect of His word upon the seat of our affection? Our thoughts, our actions are all controlled by Yahweh's word written upon our heart. Tino.
Yeah, that mark also was marked upon Cain.
Mm-hmm.
And when he started to, his seed line started to do things that he did because he built those cities. And you look at how all those particular things was built
Those
from,
actions.
was actions. All of his descendants built things for themselves, and they built things such as weaponry. That they, the scripture said they built instruments and stuff like that. But those that follow Yahweh, they didn't do that. They actually built altars unto Yahweh. They worship Yahweh, not their own sake.
Yeah. Right. So to me, it has a deeper meaning than just a physical mark. People are looking for a tattoo or this or that put on something on the physical body. I think it's much deeper than that, because that is what affects our actions, our thoughts, and what we truly, if we believe upon Yahweh, then what we would be impressed with what is Yahweh's name to us? It's a high tower, place of safety, is it not? And those that flee to it are, so the Yahweh's name written up on our hearts, Yahweh's word written up on our hearts. That's what's impressed us. So that's the mark that we receive, Yahweh's name and his word. And so the mark of the beast is what? The greatest illustration I can give of the mark of the mark of Yahweh is his spirit within us, and the fruit that we bear.
Right.
And then, of course, the mark of the beast, again, people are looking for a physical mark, but it's more of what, the character and nature that the person lives with.
Well, it does have to do with buying and selling, but it has something to do with commercial.
Well, yeah,
enterprise of some
but,
sort.
yeah. David, and then I'll say something, yeah.
Yeah, and if we, as we just read, the description of the false prophet or the false messiah, whatever you want to call it, the beast, second beast, him trying to convince everybody to make an image is the testing waters to see if you're going to break the commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, if you want to hold true to the commandments, he's going to cause you guys to be killed, or the people to be killed that refuse to follow. And so that's the switching of the mindset to do something that's actually unlawful based on scripture. And if you hold true to the law, that's the distinguishing mark between the two types of people. And then those that do believe, to worship the image and, follow the image, they've received that mark. They received the mindset to switch to do something that is unlawful.
Right,
It
right.
could be something like a flag or a balloon or a pendant. It could be any kind of thing.
Whatever that image is that actually
That's the problem.
allows you to make that your Yahweh as opposed to Yahweh. in his
I've learned
word.
something today.
It could, like you brought up, the can't buy, sell, or trade. There may be some requirement that you do something that is in violation of Yahweh's word in order to buy, sell, and trade. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical mark. It's a flaw it's something that appeals to the flaw of our nature, against our fleshly nature against the spirit of Almighty Yahweh.
I think
So,
if you're really a believer, if you keep Yahweh's laws, commandments, and all that, I think it's going to stab you. You're going to know it. It's going to somebody threw a bucket of water on you. You're going to know it. Maybe I'm wrong. If it were possible, it could deceive the very elect.
Yeah, but Yahweh, and as we read a moment ago, but Yahweh, he's not going to allow it to get to where it destroys his people ultimately.
Absolutely
But we
not.
will be tried, where it says we're going to be refined as
Yeah.
gold. Yes, Curtis.
Actually, that comment to deceive the very elect, if it were possible, that gives us a clue, a hint about the nature of this religious system that's going to.
It's a lot of pressure.
Because it's going, on one hand, it will be close enough to the truth that it will but to deceive lots of people, but on the other hand, at the same time, it will be far enough away from the truth that it will be unacceptable by the Father.
Oh, yeah,
I believe he's right.
yeah. And
There's only
notice,
one that will do that.
If you
Yeah.
break one of the smallest of the commandments, you've broken them all. And so the adversary is banking that you won't know what the smallest little thing that he's going to try to get you to break will be.
it's just like,
Probably.
years ago, I understand that advertising is designed to influence your actions and behaviors. So when I watch television, when I see commercials, I know this is trying to influence my actions, what I want, what I desire. And so one day years ago when I made a conscious decision to really pay attention to what they're trying to get me to do. And I was watching this commercial, and it was it for Red Lobster? This is back in the 80s, whatever. But they were showing this lobster and with the butter and all of this stuff. And I was like, man, that looks pretty. And then I said, but that's what they want. And I said, it's trying to, so I know that, when people say, oh, this doesn't influence, that doesn't influence, what the whole point is to influence,
Right.
you
So
know? Yes, David?
thinking about that marketing, the adversary's already started his marketing campaign on this image that the false prophet is going to actually try to erect. If we think about the 10 Commandments, but we also look at the Catholic 10 Commandments, which one of the actual commandments is missing
Yeah,
from the
Sabbath.
Catholic 10 Commandments? No, the second one.
Well, Catholic theologian
Image.
told me most importantly, we need to
Yes.
forget about the fourth commandment. He was a Jesuit professor of theology.
So-
Number 2 is important, but he said number 4 was
Well,
also rejected.
Number 4 is important, but that's not the one they removed.
Images.
The
I think you're right. I
image,
think
the
that's a good
second
point.
one
Yeah,
is the
right.
Yeah.
Number
image.
2.
Don't set up any graven image.
Graven image.
It's actually
pretty
been
smart.
removed from the Catholic
you're right.
10 Commandments.
I could see
So
that.
if that is going to be the marketing campaign to where in the future, if he sets up an image and people go to the Catholic 10 Commandments, like, well, it says nothing about image here, we're gonna follow that. He's already started.
I have to cave into that as well, because I've been in a number of Catholic cathedrals, and
Boy,
they got
I mean,
statues all over the
yeah.
place that you're
Yes,
supposed to
yes,
venerate,
Raquel.
and ask them, pray to
Sorry.
them directly, they're dead now, for intervening in your life.
So I was
Yeah.
just gonna add to that, like being former Catholic, the one that kind of creeps me out is the ashes on the forehead during Lent. That's literally marking yourself with a cross on the
Mhm.
forehead.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, there's so many
It
different,
started
it
already.
started
But,
already, yeah.
To that thing about the image though, remember what it
Yeah.
says is that he makes an image of himself, and people have
Yeah.
already accepted him to be this, he's the false Messiah, but they
Right.
accept him to be. So, yeah, but remember, the thing is, yes, I got you, Q. The thing is that for us, the spirit of the matter is what always is important, but we cannot engage in when people misuse that passage, when Yahshua was talking about, when he was challenged, why the disciples will eat with unwashed hands, he says, well, it's not what you take in your mouth that defiles you, but it's what comes out of it. Okay, well, Yahshua isn't saying it's okay to, because what it says in Torah about eating unclean things, you're unclean, you are defiled, but you're undefiled until sunset. You have to wash your clothes, bathe your flesh, and be unclean until evening. But there's still the prohibition from eating the physical object, but the spiritual lesson, that Yahshua is making it's what's within us that defiles us ultimately. Because every sin can be forgiven, right? But what if we have to be repentant of those sins? We can't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then continue in it and say, "Well, Yahweh said every sin can be forgiven." So that if you have a corrupt heart, you're just gonna think it's okay because Yahweh said every sin can be forgiven. It's the spirit of the matter, not the physical. Yes, Q.
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because we are on this topic, some people have heard me say before, I actually want to touch on what Curtis's point and then bounce to David's point, but I'll do it backwards. David said the Catholics, how they took out the second commandment using the graven image. Now, some people believe, or some people say, and they kind of use how we were going back a couple weeks ago with the scriptures of saying the abomination of desolation, how they, Antiochus of Epiphanes, and all these things.
Precursor to it, I believe.
Yeah. So the Catholic or Roman Empire would be the wounded beast, right? In Revelation, which would give power to the new beast, which would be how Curtis said, something similar or something that's close to the truth, but we know it's not the truth, which is what is the fastest growing religion today, right?
It's gonna be Islam.
Exactly. Now, I also looked up and I found this very interesting. This is just my opinion, but I also found this interesting. The 4 colors of the horsemen, and I was talking with Tino about this a while back, is the red, green, black, and they say pale. But when translated from pale, It's chloros. The Greek term is chloros. I'm pretty sure I'm messing up the term, but it actually it means green.
Right.
What nations surround Israel that use the 4 colors of green? Well, pale, right? Red, black, and white. Those are all the fastest growing religions. Those are the nations of those. So, and I mentioned before, even one of my friends who believes in that also asked me, what do you say when your Messiah comes back and says that he was never a Christian, he was actually, Muslim? We know that's not to be true. We also know that Yeshua says that there's going to be one that's going to be like me, and I believe, if if somebody's from an opposite religion saying this, that would be the false prophet. I just want to add that in.
Okay.
Yeah, just a real quick comment before Curtis. So, we can speculate what the adversary's tools are going to be all day long, because he has all of his tools are everything but what Scripture says. And so it's much easier for us to figure out what Scripture says than what he's going to try to use, because he's using everything under the sun, except
So
for
all of
what
them.
Scripture says.
Yeah.
So the easiest path is, what does the Bible?
Right, and that's why I always emphasize what we should focus on is overcoming our own nature, because Yahweh will take care of everything else if we do that. Yes, Curtis?
Yes, in reference to Q's comments about the colors, and it also ties into your comment about Esau's Confederacy. Those colors are commonly found in the colors of Islamic flag,
Yep.
representing various Islamic nations.
Yep.
And then we see in Psalm 83, Esau's conspiracy.
That's
his
the one I was
confederation.
trying to remember. I knew it was in Psalm, but I couldn't. 83, the
And it
conspiracy.
matches up with 10
The
horns,
Confederation.
10 kings, 10 toes, and even in Daniel 7:8 about 3 horns being removed.
Right.
Because as the scripture tells us, about 3 nations that will in fact be removed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes,
There
Tom?
was a mention very significantly by David about what I consider a very significant factor about not focusing so much on what Paul says, we're not ignorant of our adversary's devices.
Right.
Quote Paul, but I talked to a guy years ago with the U.S. Treasury Department, and he said in dealing with counterfeiters that try to subvert our economy, even though it's bogus Federal Reserve notes, he said they don't study all these counterfeit bills that may be remarkably close, but they study the real bills,
ones.
and are so conversant with them, the flaws that are in the counterfeit bills stick out like a proverbial sore thumb.
Right. And that is a real good analogy to consider when we don't need to be aware of the adversary. And the recent study we just went through in Salina through the book of Job really stood out to me that Job never once mentioned the adversary. Not once. They say, oh, the devil's been busy. He's just trying to. He always focused on Yahweh and his relationship with Yahweh. He says, I've sinned against Yahweh. He never gave any acknowledgement to the adversary throughout his entire trial and test. And I think that is significant. We give that power to the adversary when we start acknowledging him. We know he's here. We know he's powerful. Yahweh warns us he's very powerful and clever. But if we keep our focus on Yahweh, he becomes irrelevant, to tell the truth. If Yahweh sees fit to allow him at us like he did with Job, why did Yahweh allow him access to Job? Because Yahweh knew Job could handle it. Yahweh says, he will not allow you to be tried above what you're able to bear. Yahweh knew Job could handle it, and Job passed the test. And so we have to give less. We can't let the adversary have free rent in our minds. We're spending all our time thinking about, oh, he's busy, he's doing this, he's trying to mess up my day, da 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 da. You're giving him space in your head free. So I want to read a couple of scriptures here because I want to definitely cover one in particular. We'll try to get through these really quick because I know I'm running short on time. We'll go to Luke 17 and we'll read 21 through 28. Luke 17, 21 through 28. Neither shall they say, lo, here or there, for lo, the kingdom of Yahweh is among you. We have to remember that. And it should be within our hearts. We should be living the kingdom way and walking the kingdom walk right now. And he said to the disciples, the days will come when you shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you shall see it, and you shall not see it. You shall not see it. And they shall say to you, lo, there, lo, here, go not away, nor follow after them. For as the lightning, when it flashes out of the one part of under the heavens, I don't know why I'm having trouble here. For as the lightning, when it flashes out of the one part of under the heavens, shines to the other part under the heavens, so shall the Son of Man be in his day. But first must he suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. And it came to pass in the days of Noah, as it came to pass in the days of Noah, even so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Noah was fully aware of what was coming, as we should be fully aware. The world's going to be doing its thing, partying, having a good time, and on and on and on. But we should be aware of what's going on. And I think that part of that is the troubles that we will endure because we're going to be so different from the world. Remember, they were mocking him, making fun of him. Maybe we'll be mocked and made fun of because we're not like having a good time. We're going to be busy about our Father's business, or at least we should be. But the world's going to be going about its business of partying and having a good time. They ate, they drank, they married. They were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, even as it came to pass in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But in the day that Lot went out from Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven to destroy them all. Was not Lot vexed with the things that were going on around him? Are we not vexed about the condition of the world? We can be, but we know that the adversary is the ruler of this world and the nature of man. So while we are bothered by the things, but we should remember we are ambassadors for the coming kingdom of Yahweh. As I mentioned, the kingdom is here within us. If the Messiah is with us, if the Messiah is in us, the kingdom is in us. And so,
That's right.
So we should not let these things hinder us in what I do. Joshua warns us not to let our light become darkness. So we have to be very careful our interactions with this world. Luke 21. Oh, yes, Tom.
We have a situation in verse 17 and 18 that's a mocking that's going on worldwide today against those that are remnant children of Yahweh. Major mocking, like happened with Noah. Verse 28 says it's going to be like it was in the days of the Sodomites. What do we have with this transgender? I better be careful, I know this sensitive. Transgender, this abomination that's growing globally. It's like a plague going across the face of the world today, as it was in the days of Lot.
Yeah, it's as I was discussing with some brethren this morning, that we have to be mindful that the world being in darkness, we have to look at people as being blind and lost. We're not the judges. And so we can't allow these conditions to hinder our witness. The question came up about our interaction with people like this, and we have to treat them as human beings. We have to, with compassion. They are lost. Yes. Before you say, because remember the law of Yahweh it applies to Yahweh's people. It says that we should not have witches. That applies to Yahweh's people. It's not talking to the world in general. And when Yahweh said these commandments, he's talking to his people, because we have to be an upright and righteous people. So if a person who is a former homosexual comes as a member, it's a changed life, but he cannot be here as one. It can be as a changed, a changed life, a new creature. So it applies to Yahweh's people. Yes,
Yeah.
Raquel.
Now, I was just gonna say that, like, if I take a step back, I mean, it's deeper than just the lifestyle and homosexuality. It's a confusion of the identity where it starts, and it even goes beyond that, right? Because what is truly our identity in the image and likeness of Yeshua? And that's what we need to focus on.
That's what
our
we focus on,
identity.
right.
The other identity stuff, that's just distraction.
Right.
Kind of like when we're talking about, you could guess in so many different ways the adversary is going to confuse us, right? But if you focus on our identity and who we are in him and our walk in him.
Right,
we
and
just
that's
don't
why I
pay
appreciate
attention
what
to that
Tom
stuff.
mentioned
Yeah.
a moment ago about recognize and confer. They don't spend their time trying to recognize
Right.
counterfeits. They spend all their time studying the real thing.
Right.
And so we spend our time studying and recognizing Yahshua the Messiah in him and making him a part of us, then we don't have to worry about the counterfeits.
Yeah.
You see, they'll stand out like a sore thumb. But if we switch around the other way, we're spending our time, well, that's not the Messiah. That's like, and we're trying to spend all our time trying to identify what's not real. We're not building ourselves up. We're not doing ourselves any favor. And
Fortifying our foundation.
yeah, we're not fortifying our
When I
foundation.
was a little boy during World War II, when I was ending up, they had a song that was, I won't torture you with singing, but the words were real simple. You gotta accent the way positive and eliminate the negative, and don't mess with mystery in between.
Yeah. Couple of more, brethren, because I'm running out of time here. But we'll Luke 21, verse 20. Luke 21, verse 20. But when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that her desolation is at hand. How many times has this happened in the scriptures, brethren, where Jerusalem was surrounded by her enemies?
Bunch of times.
Yeah, a bunch of times. Then let them that are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them that are in the middle of her depart out, and let not them that are in the country enter in. This is specifically speaking of Jerusalem and Judea. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress upon the land, and wrath to this people that are in Judea. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led captive to all the nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And we're currently in the times of the Gentiles.
Well, we live in an age where that news is going to be right on the TV, radio, when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's like, I think Yahweh knew something about what time this would all be happening.
Yeah.
And the stage will be set for the information that you need to understand.
Yeah, the Spirit, I'm convinced the Spirit will reveal to us. And that's why everybody else is going to be a surprise, but Yahweh's people should never be caught off guard. The Spirit will say, just like it was revealed to the disciples, this is what was written of. And that's very important. We have to be in tune with the word of Almighty Yahweh for the Spirit to point it out, be able to point it out to us. Because the world's it's going to be like a trap. You know, we're not going to get caught in that trap if we are in tune with the word of Yahweh. Yes, Tom?
Surely Yahweh Elohim will do nothing
Except to
unless he
reveal
it to
his prophets,
servants,
his servants, the prophets.
That's a promise we should rely on.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as I mentioned last time when I was up here, I was saying, what is a prophet? It's one who speaks the word of Almighty and conveys the word of Almighty Yahweh. And that's all of us. We all should be speaking the word of Almighty Yahweh. Being a prophet doesn't mean you're telling the future. But I mean, if you go to Webster's, it'll talk about, a person who foretells the future. But in the scriptures, a prophet is defined as one who speaks Yahweh's word. Deborah was a prophetess because, why was she a prophet? She said, did not Yahweh say when there was not a man in Israel who would stand?
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
She
Yahweh's-
prophesied.
yeah, It's Yahweh's spirit that
Yeah.
allows us to prophesy, like back to Joel 2:28.
Right. So when we speak the word of Almighty Yahweh, we're prophesying. So going to what you just pointed out, what Yahweh, he will reveal it to his servants, the prophets. And so he's revealed what's going to happen in the future to the prophets of old. And so we have the record of that. But the responsibility of continuing to speak the word of Yahweh has gone down through all the saints through the ages and come to us. We have to stand for the word of Yahweh and present it correctly and properly. Verse 25, and there should be signs in the sun and moon and stars and upon the earth, distress of nations and perplexity for the roaring of the sea and the billows, men fainting for fear and for expectations of things which are coming in the world. For the power of the heavens shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. But when these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. So I see this as current and future. And also we can see that these things have happened in the past. That's why I said what I said a moment ago in verse 20. I said, how many times has Jerusalem been surrounded by armies? Many times. So we see it happened in the past. Some of this description, it fits current, but it also is speaking to future things. So we have to just remain in the word of Almighty Yahweh and faithful. Before we run out of time, I want to go to Deuteronomy 13. And we're all familiar with this one, Deuteronomy 13. And I really appreciate this because that's why I was trying to define a prophet just a moment ago. Deuteronomy 13, verse 1. We'll start in verse 1. If there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder comes to pass, of which he spoke to you, stop there, and most people go, he's a prophet, he's a prophet. But what does Moses say? Saying, let us go after other Elohim, which you have not known, and let us serve them. You shall not listen to the words of that prophet. Did it say prophet or did it say a deceiver there? It says you shall not listen to the words of that prophet. Now this is a prophet of what? Talking about future things happening. Or to that dreamer of dreams, for Yahweh your Elohim proves you to know whether you love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul. Brethren, that is key. Yahweh is going to prove, if we're looking for signs and we're looking for artifacts. Oh, this is it. If we're looking for a rebuilt temple, we're looking for all of these different things. If we're looking for, Yahweh is not with these things. Where should the Spirit of Yahweh be? Where is his dwelling place now?
Right.
It's not in a rebuilt temple. It's not in, the mercy seat on the artifact, but it's within us now. But I agree with Bob. It's going to play a significant role in the deception of the world. There are many people right now waiting. Yes, Bob, and then Tom. I think he had his hand up first.
The little phrase that I use myself is, what does the Bible say?
Yeah.
It really pays off.
Right.
What does the Bible say? I don't care what the subject is.
Mm-hmm.
If it has to do with religion, what does the Bible say?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
It has only the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it'll also show you where falseness is too.
Yeah, we are striving to be the dwelling place of Yahweh. We are to line ourselves up. Yahshua is the chief cornerstone. He is the plumb line, and we are to be those stones that are built up with him for that. Yes, Shannon.
I believe that when David he's attacked all the time, And when he uses the phrase, thank you, Yahweh, for putting me in wide open places.
Mm-hmm.
That wide open places phrase is, the root word is Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same, it's salvation.
Salvation.
So, you brought up 91, and only with our eyes shall we see. The helmet of salvation, we wear it, battle.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, we're gonna hit the battle, it's gonna try to suck us in,
Right.
but we're in wide open places thanks to Yeshua.
Mhm.
That's right.
So this man of sin is going to draw people to himself. He's going to do these great signs. He's going to do these great works. And I often think about when Yahshua, Master, do we not do these great works in your name? He says, I never knew you. We have to be mindful of who we are. We're to be servants. We're to be humble. We're to be those stumps, a remnant of people in this world that remain faithful to Yahweh. We have to know our Messiah. We have to reflect our Messiah. He has to be in us and we in him. And Yahweh will, and he and the Father will make their abode in us. So it comes down to that character, because that is the mark of Yahweh in us. That's it. It's not a physical mark, but that's the mark that Yahweh gives. His name will be upon us, his character, his nature, everything will be upon us. And so it's opposite to this world. So I'm going to stop at 23. There's so much. And I appreciate Larry printing out these notes. Like I said, I use them. I didn't use everything he has here, but I use them because so much of what he had, I already had in my notes, and this is much neater than whatever. Yes, David.
Where'd you do 24, 28?
Oh.
I thought you went down to 28.
Did I read down to 24, 28? Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry.
good, That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
I'm sorry.
That's
Boy, I can't.
Yes, I'm trying to
I was
keep it
thinking.
going.
Yeah, we're almost to the end of 24, but I mean, there's so much in it. Yes, I read.
Yeah, for who else?
Well, I didn't get to where the carcass. I wish I could have. I got that far because I was going to go on to that too. But
Yeah, we'll start at 24, 28.
20. I stopped in 24.
27, so we'll do 24, 28 next.
Therefore, say, behold, he is in the wilderness. Go forth.
The initial
Oh, yeah.
thing, I think you went to 28 to start.
But I didn't cover 28 because that one was a good one too. I was going to.
Yeah, that's where we're gonna start.
But any other comments or questions and all? This,
There is another form of idolatry that's tied in with this ark. Over 1 billion Catholics are committed to be believing that the shroud of Turin is the burial cloth of Messiah, and they venerate that. And yet, when you study the nature of burial cloths in Israel, it does not compute.
yeah.
There it is, another massive deception that vast number of people have been snookered.
Yeah. The thing is about objects is Yahweh, the only thing that Yahweh has approved to represent him is his name. The instruments that he commanded Moses to make to be put into the holy place, we see menorahs, people, but somebody gifted one to me. It's not an object of worship to me. I have a plaque that was given to me that has Yahweh, a woodwork that has Yahweh's name. It's not an object of worship to me. I use it for decoration, but it's not an object of worship. Yahweh there's nothing. And so, but people want to have, Johann spoke about seeing is believing. A lot of people, they have to see something. They have these objects of worship. In the scriptures, I was talking to a fellow last week and I said, the cross. When you listen to the radio, they're constantly talking the cross, the cross, the cross. It's an object of worship, but that's not biblical. Yahweh didn't say, to revere any physical object, but the only thing that represents Yahweh is his name. He said, that's my memorial forever. And so when I just had that thought when you mentioned that cloth. I mean, people have made that an object of worship, but yeah, even Moses, when Yahweh buried Moses, and nobody knows where, because it would have become an object of worship. I think Israel would have planted themselves right there and not moved any further. So Yahweh, he buried him, and nobody knows where he is.
Well, it says Michael, the archangel, had destined encounter with the adversary over the body of Moses, knowing full well that might be an object of
worship.
worship.
Yeah. So that's the tendency and nature of man. They have to have some physical thing. So the calf, here they came to the mount, and they said, "This is Yahweh who brought you out of Egypt." They had to have some object to worship. But anyway,
The bronze snake.
yeah.
Always an object somewhere.
So, but anyway,
Even to this very
brethren,
day, medical healing arts, the scapulus was the one that was in the Hellenistic world. They've got that snake around a stamp on ambulances, on people's pins that are doctors, not trying to put down doctors.
right.
That's, to me, rather remarkable. They still got the caduceus, the serpent wrapped around the pole.
The pole, yeah.
And they ended up making an object of worship and had to be ground up.
So we have to beware of these things, brethren. But so we'll end the study at this point, and we'll be back at 3 o'clock with Johan's giving the message. So, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.